And I was born in May 1927. And I was born in Dublin, where I lived for 19 years. We were working class, but my mother was rather grand. And she always looked down on Dublin people. She didn't like them. And my father loved horses, and he was addicted to the racetracks. So that we were very often short of money because of this love of horses and racing. So every Friday on his way from work, he used to go into the bookies, and very often he left his wages there. And then he'd come home and he had a ticket from the bookies, and he said to my mother, "Janie, I'm going to frame that, and that's it. He's not going to bet anymore." But he did that every week. At one time, she had to demean herself by meeting him outside work so that he could hand his wages to her. I think he got away with a lot, you know, because she had 6 children. In Ireland at that time, they didn't work outside the house because there was no work. And they were just lucky if their husband had a job. And if they didn't, they used to get dole, which was very small. I came to England in 1947 because there was no work in Ireland. And I came here and I was absolutely delighted to see that you could walk into a job, and if you didn't like it, you walk out and go and get another job. It was really like fairyland. I always read a lot, and I was very good at spelling, so I decided that I'd do typing. In the evening, I worked at the Empire Theatre in Leicester Square to get extra money. And so I was there for quite a few of the big performances, and I've got Ronald Reagan's autograph. I had no romantic notions or anything like that, but I was never going to get married. Oh no, I was going to have a big job, good wages, a beautiful flat and a dog. That was my ambition. I went to a dance hall at the Angel, which is now pulled down, and met my future husband. This person came towards me, and I looked, and that was it. Instant, and he was allowed to leave me home. So that was a big honour for him that he was allowed to leave me home. I married, and he went in to study engineering. He did 4 years at engineering, and we were very poor. Even though there was lots of work then, he was studying because it was full-time. I worked up to a week before my son was born. When my son was 3 months old, I went back to work because my husband was still a student, so we needed the money. We were very happy together. He was a wonderful husband and father, and he died when he was 49. Financially, I never had any problems because he had paid always this big insurance into work where there was a lump sum. That's life. You just carry on, and which I did.
My name is Roya Modaresi, and I'm from Iran. Being an artist in Iran is not really easy things to do because we had a lot of non-accepted painting. I came to Britain and kind of as an asylum seeker. My family is a middle-class family. My father was a good, very, very good chef in kind of biggest hotel. Head of a house in my family actually was my mom. My mom's lead the house financially and everything. It was in her hand. Religions stuff seems men are leader, but actually they're not. Happened in most of the families in Iran, but it's not visible. You can't see them because they are in control, but they are behind the scene. They are leading the whole family, but they are kind of invisible. Actually, my dad passed all the salary to my mom, and my mom divided and give a kind of daily pocket money to my dad to, kind of, because she was able to look after the finance and the money better than my dad. My generation was a bit kind of tricky generation because, for instance, when I was 9, the revolution happened in Iran. Things changed suddenly within less than a year. After the revolution, because of the new system, all the women's being professional before revolution, they had to kind of change their job to maybe a lower level.
Society doesn't need them to earn money.
To earn money or to be in society. They shouldn't be in society. They should be at home to look after the kids. As soon as you get married, husband say, you don't need to go for work anymore. So they want to look after you, or in my opinion, they want to control you. As an artist, I start to, research about women's situation in Iran. Kind of supporting women's rights in Iran started from that time.
So my name is Voiki. I'm 36 years old, and I was born in Romania in a very small town. My grandfather was a priest, so I grew up in the church a lot, and just running around the church was interesting for me at the time. The communist ideal that women would go and work in factories and put on those ugly, horrible clothes. I think my mother's generations, everybody pretty much had a job and brought equal income because that was the mentality of communist Romania. The social classes were divided very, very strongly into two parts, the intellectuals and the workers. People were expected to work, absolutely. It wasn't expected for them to have intellectual jobs. So my mom would bring a lot of money in the house and never question how my father would spend the money, so she was not depending on him financially at all. My father came from a very poor background, and he has fought a lot to get to be a teacher. And of course, he had to be a member of the Communist Party because otherwise he wouldn't have had the opportunity to do any of these. Because if you're outside of the Communist Party, you're not doing anything. He was a very strong personality. You couldn't say no to him. My mom was an extension of my father's ego and his career. So she would buy anything from car to the fridge to anything that was needed in the house. So she absolved him of all the house responsibilities. And my mother, she did something that most people in communist Romania don't do, and that is she divorced. She was the daughter of an Orthodox priest, so she was expected to be a loyal wife forever. It was very difficult for her to divorce because he was very, very powerful. And also, through legal papers, she was bound to be in one place, in one particular part of the country. So I guess my mother's creativity and inventivity came along when she actually managed to get us settled into a different prefecture of the country. My grandfather had a lot of very precious religious objects. they are quite valuable, so they would exchange it for little favors. So from favors to bribes to little maneuvers, she managed to move to a different city.
My name is Gardenia. I was born in Belo Horizonte, Brazil. My mom was born in a little house in the middle of nowhere, outside of the economic system. So my mom was very proud to say that when she was a little girl, she would wash clothes in the river. My father was an intellectual banker. He was a very unusual man as well because he was very intelligent, a genius. As an economist, I've never met anyone as intelligent as my father ever. My mom never really cared about money. She just spent it. When I was very young, money was so plenty. I was extremely wealthy. My father was a banker. We had a massive house with massive cars and loads of money. We had plenty. But then something happened. When I was 6 years old, my dad disappeared from home. He went to work and then he never came back. He was away for 3 months. He disappeared on the day he gave to the bank, presented to the bank a dossier with incriminated corruption scheme at the bank. It was the time of dictatorship in Brazil, and we suspect that he was taken and interrogated and tortured by the military government. My mom was in a very difficult situation. She was left without any income, with 4 children to look after, really with no idea if my dad was alive or dead. We had to live from the help of family and friends to buy food and everything. Mom did not have access to my father's bank's account with the investments. When my father returned, he had amnesia. He lost his memory. It was hard for him to keep a job. So my mom took over. She's very good at persuading people. So she would sell both books and beauty products. Sometimes we did have a maid, and sometimes we didn't. It would depend on my mom, my parents' economic situations, bonus, if my mom managed to sell another property of my father. Because what was happening is, my mom said, I have to sell the farm, blah, blah, blah farm in Pantanal. So then she would sell the farm in Pantanal, and then we would go on holiday, we would have loads of things, we would have a maid, and then buy what we were missing for lots of times. And the money would run out because my mom was not very good with money. And then we would be back to the same situation as before, with sometimes not even empty fridge and not money to buy the basics. And it was very hard for her to cope with it, but she did. Somehow she managed to do it, and she did it. She just faced it and carry on.
I'm Carolyn Alton, I'm 56, I've got 3 children, and I've lived in North London for most of my life. I came from a very, very conventional family. My father worked, my mother didn't. They were married quite young. Neither of them had had lovers before they got married. It almost threatened us that we would not have successful marriages in the way that they had if we flouted this rule. I was with a partner for 16 years. He worked very, very hard, but earned very, very little. I worked less hard, but earned a lot more. So the ecology of our household was that I paid for almost everything, and he was at home and did more of the childcare and the cooking. When my sons were 4 and 2, their father left to marry somebody and went to America. My children were awake all night crying for their father. The money and the status were quite literally an armour that got me through being the breadwinner, the owner of the house, and a professional person. I think, in some respects, saved me from going under completely. I was always mourning the third child that he and I had been discussing having almost up to when he left. So I thought I would give it a whirl by myself. Having my third child by myself felt much safer, I think. I'd always wanted to be a writer, and I decided to borrow money against the house and try to make it as a writer. I did get commissions, I did earn money, but not enough. I started going more and more into debt. It has taken quite some time to readjust. I edit notes for a bank, I do tutoring, I rent out rooms, and so we bump along with a hodgepodge of different income streams, if you can call them streams, income trickles. It seems to me that money is much too dominant as our main currency, if that makes sense.